win up to £25,000. The Community Lottery, a subscription-based lottery that allows you to continue to support good causes that matter. When you win, good causes win. Every month, eligible good causes have the opportunity to win a share of funds that could help them continue the good work that they do in our communities. To apply, there's no complicated forms, nor do you have to be a registered charity. Just grab your phone, send us a 60-second video explaining your good cause and the difference having extra funding would make to your project. Visit thecommunitylottery.com. Hit the play button and sign up for either 13 weekly draws or by direct debit for just £4.35 that gives you 4 weekly draws. You could have the chance of winning £25,000. The aim of the Community Lottery is to create an additional source of funding that will enable good causes to undertake innovative projects that matter. If you're in, the communities win.
Good evening, and welcome to another edition of What a Week right here on MediaNet Live TV with myself, Mr. C, and of course my co-host, Mr. Tony Crossbody, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. C.
Big up yourself, Tony. How you doing, sir?
Well, excited. We've come to the end of a year.
Yes, man. Listen, and what a year it has been. We want to say welcome to all of our viewers, subscribers. Please make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and share buttons. But most importantly, make sure you're joining the conversation. So yes, Tony, as you were saying, what a year it has been. We are now the last show of the year. And as we look back, wow, it's been a journey, mate.
It's been amazing, brother. It's been amazing. I mean, there are two ways you can look at this whole experience. And we've had all the negatives, but a lot of people have had some positives come out of this, which we're probably going to discuss during this show.
Yeah, well, you know, I think we can actually start with one of the positives. I mean, when we started this show, ladies and gentlemen, way back, which was before the pandemic, we met in the studio, and we had a wonderful host by the name of Terry, and she was just the figurehead that this show needed. She guided us. She absolutely held everything together and was such a lovely and warm and welcoming face that it made things so easy for myself and you, Tony.
She was a glue that sort of held that show together when she was there. She was so professional. You know, she knew You know, when to bring her points in, and yeah, it was just so interesting when she was on the show.
Yeah, so we wanted first and foremost to pay homage to Terry. This show would not have been what it is without her. Her guidance and her energy and the vibrance what she brought to this show has made What a Week the show that it is now. So she has moved on to bigger and better things, and we want to wish her well in her journey. And hopefully we will get her back one day as even, again, an anchor or a co-host on this show, or if not, at the very least, as a guest, a very special guest. So please, let's give a big round of applause to our original host, Terry.
Absolutely. We miss Terry.
We miss her like cooked food, man, like cooked food. So yeah, so we want to say a big shout outs going to Melrose Christo, Donna Ben, Denise Francis, also Tracy Angel, Sandra Henry, and all the other people watching as well. So please feel free to join in the comments. So what can we say, Tony? The year 2020, it has been an eye-opener for us all. It started off in December 1999, where people were making their plans as regards to their New Year's resolutions. We knew that it was the Chinese Year of the Rat. And oh boy, if only we could have smell a rat. It was also a leap year, so it gave us an extra day. However, I feel it gave us a little bit more than that. We want to just have a little highlight as regards to the first quarter of year 2020. It went something like this. First quarter, January to March. So we've got a little video waiting for you. There might be a little bit of a technical hitch there. But again, the first, there we go. New Year's Eve celebrations. Let us know in the comments where you went for New Year's. So we saw January kick off as normal. People had lots of money, couldn't wait to get involved in the January sales. Here we go. Come on to me here. Who would have thought that a flat screen TV would have caused so much frenzy? And then February, the month of
early
love.
Valentine's gift. What do you think it is? Flowers? Yeah,
The
actually,
woman
yeah.
turned man
Open the door right there. All right, good luck. Surprise! Happy Valentine's Day! So we got you 100,000 roses for Valentine's Day. I know, it's a little...
And then in March.
Community office workers who can work from home to do so in key public services and in all professions where home working is not possible, such as construction or retail, people should continue to attend their workplaces.
Oh boy.
And you know what, Mr. C, that was the time when we just started this show. It must have been the week before that announcement.
There you go.
We actually did the pilot at the studio, if you recall.
That's correct. That's correct.
When we heard that announcement, it was transferred to doing the show from home, where we've been ever since.
and my brother, it's been a journey. So let's look. We've got some of the comments there. We can just make us big on the screen, please, so that we can see all these comments properly. So this is what people were doing last year. Melrose Christo said, We spent New Year's Eve at a hotel, and you was there, Mr. C. Oh, Father, don't remind me. Oh. Tony, that was I died the death of 1,000 deaths. I did the coronavirus performance on that show.
So it went down like a ton of bricks, yeah?
A ton of bricks. Listen, I've got to give it a joke. I died the death of 1,000 deaths. Ed Nestor tried to revive me, to resuscitate me. I came off the stage. He built the audience up again and brought me back on again. And I died an even worse death.
Well, I mean, you can never be a professional unless you go through that, brother. That's business, isn't it?
Listen, you know what? I'm so used to there's so many different emotions that stand-up comedy brings. So it was all good. As we continue on, Brenda Lewin Duncan said she was at the Holiday Inn with Jerry Bascom's UK event. What a night, she said, and I have not raved since. Well, I hope it's because you over-raved yourself and not because you wasn't happy with Jerry's event. Donna Ben says she started the year in her yard, and lo and behold, she's still in her yard.
Well done, Donna. That's exactly what I was doing.
Oh, my days.
Good evening, Adriana. Good evening, Tracy.
So what exactly did you do at the beginning of the year, Tony?
Well, I think, if I recall, I was actually watching the fireworks on TV. I wasn't out and about.
No, you're not one of those who goes out to actually go and watch the fireworks live, no? No,
not really. I can't. I don't like too big a crowd.
Okay, I hear that. Susan Lindo says this time last year I was in Spain. Oh, hola, Susan, señorita. Oh my gosh, I can't even read that. Read that for me, please, Tony. Now, chat show. I don't want to even read that.
I was at Ring the Alarm in Jay watching a stage show. Memories. Some of us got it like that, you know. Brenda Llewellyn Duncan says she's laughing. No, the rave was wicked, Mr. C. So she said, despite the fact that you sunk like a ton of bricks, she said the rave was wicked.
Thanks.
She's polite. Good evening, Avril Lindsay.
Oh, so then, yeah, we you know, the year started off wonderful. We had lots of celebrations. There was lots of money in our pockets. We went out and crazy with the sales. And then February came and we slowed the pace down for a little bit of chocolate and roses for the ladies. Some of my male friends, they did the sensible thing. And they made sure that they went to prison so that they didn't have to. It's a lot cheaper, Tony. No, seriously, it's a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. Go take advice of a learned. Spend 3 weeks in prison.
And the thing is, Valentine's follows right after Christmas, so you haven't even got time to replenish your bank account.
My brother, and because even if you take a young lady out on New Year's Eve, you know, that's £400 gone easily. And then, because she doesn't want to drink and drive, you don't want to drink and drive, so you stay in a hotel up. So that's the next £200. And then now, what happens? As soon as you wake up that morning, you have breakfast at the hotel. Next thing you know, she says, "I want to go Oxford Street." Into the sales, and you can't go into the sales, Tony, and you don't buy her nothing. So that's now another £600 gone. And then as soon as your wage drop in February, it's Valentine's.
Oh,
so it's the best thing to do. Put yourself in a prison. Commit to crimes you never committed.
Melrose says that's just for the first night you're paying all that money out, bro.
Listen.
How can you say no? What's she going to tell her friends?
What can we say? No. You know what? I do believe that if somebody moves you emotionally like that, then you should spend your heart's desire on that person and ensure that they're happy. However, as for me and mine, no. Valentine's is, and especially is a leap year, Tony. Do you know what that means for us as men?
We're supposed to propose.
No, leap year, that means
They're supposed to.
The lady can propose.
Oh
So,
wow, that explains a lot of things, man. I've been getting a lot of messages recently.
There you go. It's like,
okay.
yeah, like for me, anytime I was around the presence of any woman at all, and she dropped something, and she bend down to go pick it up, and she went on one knee, I run, gone.
So can you imagine, picking up on Denise's point, if your birthday was at Christmas, or like she says, January, and then you got Christmas, you got January, and then you got February.
Wow.
Oh.
And she says her birthday's at the beginning of January, and everybody's broke.
Oh boy.
And then we heard the announcement as regards to, I mean, what did you think, Tony, when the first time you heard about this particular strange thing, what was happening in China, in the city of Wutang, that place over there, sir.
Yeah. I mean, I thought the story was kind of strange. You know, a story about bats and bat soup, and you know, nobody apprehended the bat to ask the bat what he was doing. Right? We just had this story that this bat, Wuhan. That's it. Thank you, Avril.
Wuhan, that's the one. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Good evening, Janice. Yeah. So you know, we had this story about bats and soup, and you know, and all of a sudden, virus. Nobody could make heads or tails of it, but we all, I believe, thought it would be a very sort of short-term situation.
Most definitely. I mean, as you said, it was the week or 2 weeks after we'd actually done this show live for the very first time in the studio, and I honestly thought that we would be back in the studio within a matter of weeks, 3 weeks maximum. I thought to myself. And then it just seemed like it just continued, you know, the spread of the virus was going further. The whole of China was on a lockdown. However, the rest of the world was not adhering to what was going on in China. You know, who's to blame here, ladies and gentlemen? Who's to blame? Is it China's fault because they didn't lock their city down and stop their people from leaving? Or is it the rest of the world's fault for allowing people to still travel to and from China? Who was really to blame here? Was Boris a little bit slack in not taking this thing seriously, as such as also with President Trump as well? I shouldn't even call him President Trump. I should call him Donald Trump. Sorry.
But you may forget this, but when we did that first pilot show, that was the first time you and I met, because we didn't know each other before, and we were talking about this, and I specifically said, they're going to prepare a vaccine for us to take. Do you remember we were laughing? Do you remember?
Yeah.
You know, I kind of jested it like, you know, it's a wild possibility, but we laughed it off, and then look where we find ourselves.
Yeah, that's why you got to be careful with words, man. Words are so powerful. It's not called spelling for nothing. Angela Cozier says, I knew it was coming from Jam because we normally go to Asia in February and kept reading about the virus. So we did not book our first holiday for 2020. So Angela, if you didn't know, why you never tell the rest of it?
You kept that to yourself.
You couldn't tell us a little side, you know?
Right. She had the inside scoop.
Yeah.
But
look,
I think you to see the way it was sort of handled here. It wasn't taken very seriously, and I think the population just followed suit of the government.
Yeah, 100%. Denise says she was in Jamaica in February and came back the beginning of March to all of this. And again,
can you imagine?
I suppose you wish you'd stayed now. Now, at first, though, we had the lockdown, and you know, we was told that certain things we couldn't do. We were advised to go out for walks. The weather was surprisingly very good at that time of year, and it almost felt like we got the bank holiday we was always wanted a little bit early. Tony, did you go to the beach or anything at all? Was you one of these people who went to the beach and just chilled out and took time out?
You know what? Not really. I mean, I was just hoping that that sort of lockdown period would come to an end, and I was optimistic that when the summer would arrive, that we would be out of it. But once I kept seeing that carrot and stick technique that the government was using, oh, well, if we do this in a little while, we'll go back to normal. If we do this in 2 weeks. And, you know, the announcements were getting longer and longer. First, it was 14 days, then it became 21 days, and it became 30 days. I began to realize that this thing is probably going to go on for a little longer than everybody expects.
Yeah, yeah. Brenda Lewin Duncan says, I see it that we were at advantage point being on an island. We should have locked down for 2 to 4 weeks and took control. You know, I tend to agree with you, Brenda. If Boris and co had been a little bit more, how can I put it, forward thinking and acted a little bit sooner, then possibly we could have reduced some of the numbers. Angela also says, now we have tier 5 coming.
Oh, don't talk about that, Angela. Don't talk.
From the 1st of January, they're talking, or the first week in January, we'll have tier 5. So this particular virus, there's been lots of talk as regards to whether or not this virus is as deadly as people make out to believe. We saw quite a few different opposing views, Tony. Can you remember some of them which were out there?
Well, I think we went from outright skepticism on one end, and at the other end is, well, everything that the government's saying is true, despite the sort of dilly-dallying of whether masks were effective or not. You know, you had the sort of those two extremes, and then you had people in the middle who just were hoping that, well, let's cooperate, and then the sooner we cooperate, the sooner this is going to be dealt with. So that's what I saw. That's what I saw out there.
And again, on the other side of the fence as well, you had people. It seemed to me a battle between a lot of people using the term common sense, a lot of people using terms such as, you know, do your own research. And then again, you had a lot of people who were just like, it's the government. The government cares for its people. The government knows best. And there seemed to be, again, even a divide between doctors and nurses and scientists as well. So, but we saw something what I've never seen before in my lifetime, Tony, where now those people who had opposing views to the general rhetoric of the government were being censored. So when that started happening, what was running for your mind, sir?
You know, I started to think that this COVID thing was like a religion. So you had the government scientists who were the high priests, and then you had the followers, the indoctrinated followers who just went on every word. And then you had the religious skeptics who were then being marginalized as having no faith. And actually, we need to deal with these skeptics because they are going to harm the faith of others. And that's what it looked like to me. And it still does. It still looks like some form of religious faith that is being pushed forward, that we all must worship the God of COVID.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. And listen, the congregation of We Must Worship COVID, oh my days, man, they made sure that whenever you went to church, be it a supermarket or a shop, they made sure that you was putting your contribution into the coffers, i.e. make sure you've got your mask on. And if you didn't, woe betide.
Right.
Yay, I say, yay.
And you see, the key is they have, the way it's done is that they have the public policing each other.
Yeah.
So shaming you into wearing your mask, shaming you into social distancing. See, the government and the police don't have to do anything because those who follow this creed, they're going to do the work of the government.
And it's funny though, because, you know, at the time, I'm not saying that people weren't taking it serious, but, you know, again, even though the image we put up was of the beach being closed, but before they closed the beaches, I should say, there was a mass exodus to the beach. It was like a lot of people was just like, look, I'm home, I'm doing nothing. I need some fresh air. The weather's lovely outside. I'm going to the beach. And we saw, you know, thousands upon thousands of people actually, you know, flouting the social distancing guidelines. And again, we, probably in the beginning we saw this massive peak, but then we got to this period in the summer where again the sun was out. I mean, this is the first time I can say in my history of life that I've ever seen every single bank holiday brought sunshine this year. The first time ever. And people wanted to go out and enjoy the sun, and they did that. But there wasn't that much of a spike in numbers during the summer. So again, it kind of led people to believe that, is this thing as serious as the government are telling us? Is it as serious as the World Health Organization is telling us? However, we were seeing now a twist in the story, because at the beginning, if you remember, Tony, there was a certain group of people who didn't seem to be affected by this coronavirus at all.
That's right. So the Afro-Caribbean community as such.
Places such as Africa as well, the Caribbean.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then out of nowhere, figures started to be bandied around about how those from African Caribbean communities were 3 to 4 times more likely to catch COVID. And those figures, that narrative has been perpetuated till now. And the effort now is actually to get those communities in the front line to actually get their vaccines. In fact, people may not realize that a NHS task force has been set up to deal with communities that have the biggest objections to vaccinations. And actually on these committees are Black people. And what they're designed to do is to basically persuade and encourage the community that your fears about vaccinations are unfounded, and actually that the vaccination is good for you.
Well, we go to the comments. Christine Beverton says, why don't we in the UK adopt the Caribbean lockdown curfew, which kept St. Lucia protected and a very low mortality?
Yeah, that's true. But unfortunately, St. Lucia is also starving. That's the problem now.
Really?
Yeah, they're starting to starve.
Oh my gosh, man. Again, we probably have to try.
And some of the actual guidelines in the Caribbean are actually much more harsher than here. In fact, and I know, for example, my friend from Trinidad, who I spoke to the other day, told me that masks are compulsory on the street.
On the street?
Yeah.
Well,
even in the car, I believe now.
Wow.
And that there are penalties for not adhering to those guys. And how the Caribbean say, how the police stay there. They
don't play. They don't play. They don't play at all. Oh my God, that's it's wow.
So Don says, what does COVID know about time? These people are really taking us for fools. Curfew, they're having a laugh. So that's in the response to, I think Tracy made the point, answering a question about what is Tier 5. Tier 5 is the lockdown plus potential curfew. So in other words, you're not able to leave the house after a certain time in the evening. And that's what the government are now considering.
Well, I had I've been doing some radio recently, and I had the radio guy dropped off some equipment for me yesterday, and he told me that on his way here there was, on particular roads, there was like almost cordons of police asking people where they're going, what are they up to. So it's coming soon. It's coming soon.
Yeah.
Absolute crazy. Angela Cozier says Brazil and Sweden have not had any lockdowns, and they're not at the top of this table. So interesting. So different. Again, different ways of dealing with it. So we've had St. Lucia very strict, complete lockdown, masks in the street as Trinidad, whereas Brazil and Sweden, no lockdowns. And again, they're not at the top of the table. So it really does seem to be different in different places of the world, and that doesn't seem to make sense.
Yeah. James says somewhere down the line, someone is making a great financial gain. A great financial gain. Yes, Karen. What people don't tell you is that the two scientists that speak for the government both have shares in GSK, who just so happens to be involved in the vaccine manufacture. And also the government have been putting out tenders for their mates, to basically make lots of money while we've all been distracted. So yes.
sorry, are we saying Jamaica 12 million, population of 12,732,000 and only 298 deaths, Angela?
Yeah, she said 12,732.
Oh, right. Who've contracted COVID-19? Okay, and only 298 deaths. And again, Cuba 11,430, and only 143. So yeah, it seems like it's really different. And the thing what's surprising as well with the whole thing, Tony, for myself, is that if this thing is spread all over the world and it's all originated from one place, China, therefore that strain what's gone on to other parts of the world should literally be the same. So why is Britain the only place what seems to have this now deadlier second strain?
Nothing seems to make sense in this narrative, does it? That's.
Yeah.
I think when you try to explain this on the basis that it's out of our hands and it's just some mutating virus, none of this makes sense. There's only two possible explanations for this. It's that everything is going to plan, right? Or nobody really knows what they're doing.
I'm so sorry, Tony. I wasn't laughing at yourself. It was Denise Francis' comment. Denise Francis says, my consultant video called me and thought I'd say yes to the vaccination. I asked him if he was taking it and he said yes. So I told him I'll watch him after he's taken it for a couple of years. Then he can ask me again.
That reminds me of that video we saw last week with that politician from Maypen in Jamaica. And we've started to hear cases of people's faces freezing up, and
yes,
I think a number of cases of when people have had the vaccination but could not move from their bed.
Yeah, it can have very, very, very adverse effects on certain people. Again, I do believe that, I'm not saying that the vaccine is not safe. I'm not saying that. I do believe, though, that they need to provide a more detailed approach as regards to the people who have been tested for it. And again, how does it, what's the racial breakdown of those people who have volunteered for testing the vaccination? And again, so that people of a certain ethnicity can look at the numbers regarding their ethnicity and their location in the world to see how that best fits them or best does not fit them. But COVID.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, go on. No, go on.
No, I was just going to comment on Dawn. Dawn Mears. Good evening, Dawn. She says that they're putting the fear in us so all of us can run and get the vaccine. So that's the narrative, isn't it? When you watch the news, what emotion is trying to be drawn out of you when you listen to the news?
Well, it's a good thing you should say that, Tony, because even though there's been all of this, I don't think there's anything been ever more scareful or fearful, I should say, or scaremongering in the world than COVID-19 in my lifetime anyway. I do remember back in the early 70s, there was talk about whether Russia or America is going to let go the nuclear bomb and there might be a nuclear Armageddon. And there was a moment where there was that little bit of a fear. But I think this COVID-19 has out-trumped all of those situations, Ebola, SARS, whatever. It seems to have generated a fear that I've never seen amongst people. However, there's been some good stories what have come out of people who have, found new opportunities and new ways of living their life, Tony. And I think these things should be celebrated. Any particular story that comes to your mind when you look back at 2020?
Well, I think the most obvious one, Mr. C, is this show. It was put together by the organizers who thought that this would be a good platform to discuss weekly events that affect the Black community. And, who knew that at the end of the year, we'd still be here, with a faithful following, raising topics that are of interest to our people and still discussing the very virus that was present when we first started the show. So from a community perspective, I think that this is one of the things, this platform has been one of the positive things that have come out of this crisis.
Most definitely. And, you know, look, we're seeing people who have been working from home. They've saved themselves absolutely a fortune from commuting. They've saved themselves a lot of time. A lot of people are spending quality time now with their family, going for walks together, cooking and eating together for the first time in a long time. A lot of families are doing that now because they're actually home at the same time. A lot of our children are being homeschooled now, where parents have now got the time and the space to actually look over and assist children with their education, with their homework. And again, I've been able to have conversations, direct conversations with the teachers as well, because, you know, a lot of the students are on video calls to their students. So if there's a problem, the teacher's there, you can have a little word. So for some people, it's been a wonderful moment as well. And what have you been doing at home? What have you been getting up to during this time of lockdown? Have you picked up any new skills, any new hobbies? Has it given you a new lease of life? These are the things that we want to find out from our viewers and those of you who are in the comments. Has COVID-19, has this break given you a new lease of life? Have you started doing something different? Let us know.
I think that's a good question, Mr. C, because when we think about COVID, we're always thinking about the negatives, and you know, and you know, humans are very adaptable. We may not necessarily like a situation that we're in, but we're able to use situations to our advantage. So, in some cases, for example, parents and children perhaps have grown closer together and bonded together. You know, people have picked up arts and crafts and cooking skills. And you know, many people actually look, as Melrose says, working from home was a positive. So there are things. If we look, we can see that in some way, believe it or not, some of us have had personal benefit from this crisis.
And of course, and there has been personal tragedy. We send a big heartfelt hug and love to Denise Francis, who actually lost her mother due to COVID related illnesses. We honestly, we feel it for so many people who lost a relative or a loved one to COVID. It's one of those things where, you know, it's knocked on a lot of doors near and far, home and away. However, we will probably deal with that a little bit later on in the show. But we just want to stay on the positives for now. So, I mean, I can say for myself, it's given me time to acquire skills that I just didn't have the time to acquire before. So, you know, at the beginning of the show, Tony, I think you was part of my yoga. We had to change the timing of the show a few times to fit in with my yoga routine.
Right.
I literally was picking myself up the mat and trying to put myself back in position, because listen, some of them yoga position, you know, listen, I don't envy women. I don't envy women at all. There's certain positions I'll never put a woman in again after I've done yoga. I know exactly what I'm doing with you now. So I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Just make sure you're Make sure you're better than one in the class. That's the only thing, you know.
Listen, downward dog is not an easy position. May I tell you for I know.
Sorry for all the children watching.
It's a yoga position. It's a yoga position. But yeah, you know, there was a lot of people who were put on furlough, and for them, wow, what a moment to be at home, not working, but yet on 80% of your pay must have been a blessing in disguise for some people. Some people were offered redundancies and have started up their own businesses online and are thriving. So there's been lots of positive things that have come out of this particular moment. Blossom Nation says my cooking skills have gone from 0 to hero.
Hey. Good evening, Blossom.
Karen James also says we've got great shows like What a Week, Leafon. Oh, come on. We need to give Leafon and all the other DJs a big round of applause as well. No joke with Eddie Nesta. Absolutely fantastic with himself, Angela Marr and Curtis Walker. They have been great platforms. And online as well, such as Instagram, we've seen the rise of starlets like Judy Love.
Yes, indeed.
Has been hosting her own weekly talk show online and attracting well over 3,000 viewers per show, and moved on to bigger and better things with Loose Women.
Yeah, incredible.
I just want to say that there were, however, though, some events which, at the time, I think when this whole coronavirus and COVID thing was happening, I didn't think that certain events would ever be stopped.
Right.
But they were.
Yeah, you mean the blue ribbon events, the big events that we're so used to having year in, year out. And I think, Mr. C, that was the telling factor about how serious governments around the world were taking this COVID.
Most definitely. Now, just before we cover all of the sporting events which were cancelled, we want to say thank you to all of our viewers, all of our watchers, and some of you have become like family to us. And that's why we did a little competition. Some of you saw it, some of you didn't. If you didn't see it, shame on you. To give one of our viewers the opportunity to be our special guest on the show. And we did it fairly. We put all the names and the numbers into an electronic computer called Tony Crossbody, and he did a whirl, and you picked out a name, Tony. Who was that lucky person who's going to join us as our special guest?
The name of the lucky person who was won is the lady Angela Cozier. Please welcome her to the show, Angela. Woo!
Angela, you are a winner.
Thank you, guys.
You are actually, Angela, now our What a Week Olympian. We've seen your names and your comments pop up many a week, and we just wanted to say from the bottom of our heart, thank you for being here on this journey with us. And we just wanted to, again, we want to do this more, ladies and gentlemen. We want to invite you guys who are in the comments to come on our show, because it's equally your show as much as it is myself and Tony's. So, Angela, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you guys?
Oh, yes.
We're even better now that you're here to keep us company.
Well, this was amazing. This was a very big surprise because I love the show every Tuesday. Must. So yeah, for a whole lockdown, my daughter just says to me, "Oh, what live is it today then? And what live is it today then?" Yeah. So yeah, that's been my life for lockdown.
Bless. So Denise Francis says, nice to put a face to a name. And it is a nice face what goes with the name as well, isn't it?
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, Angela, how has this lockdown coronavirus situation, how has it affected you? The positives and the negatives, and the positives?
Basically, I think there's only been one negative.
Okay.
And I had to go to the supermarket amongst people and buy food. I have for the last 23 years always done it online, and I couldn't get one slot. I think they sent me a little email to say, "Oh, congratulations, you've done 9 deliveries this year," and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Really? But, yeah, I think that's been the worst part. But other than work, I work in IT, so I can do everything from home anyway. Being at home has been brilliant. And it's just been great. I've just been learning a lot more self-education, and watching Tony shows made me buy more books. So the money I was saving, it went on the books that I've already got. Husband goes, "Is that another book?" I'm like, "Yep."
There you go. Knowledge is wealth too, though. Knowledge is wealth too.
No, most of, and on the wealth, I've done more on the investing side. So I learned a lot more about my investing, and yeah, it's brilliant. And if you haven't got one, guys, make sure you open a Stocks and Shares ISA.
There you go. What a week exclusive. Stocks and Shares ISA.
Not the cash one.
because again, listen, we've got to be looking forward in life, and a lot of stuff is going to be automated. A lot of stuff is going to be going online. So it seems like technology is a good bet for the future.
Yeah.
Not saying I'm a financial advisor. Make
No.
sure you check out your own information and do your own
You have to
research before
you
you
have to do
invest
research.
any of your money, because if you invest it in the wrong thing and then you turn bankrupt and you come knock on my door, I only have patty and Guinness punch to offer you.
No sorrow.
Hmm.
So Angela, you sound like a very sort of progressive, forward-thinking person. Where does that actually come from, do you think?
Having a hard life and not making that want to change or mold me. I just said, no, I've got to be positive all the way through. So yeah, had a tough life growing, and then I made sure that weren't going to be how my daughter, my husband were going to see that of me, and as basically always be positive. Has to be done.
Right.
Be stressed out and get ill.
How did you
Fantastic.
start that change? Did you read books? Did you go on courses? What sort of change?
I mean, throughout, I think I've always basically things like healthy eating, exercise, just basically positivity and being around positive people. I did do some reading, but not going all out. But yeah, just trying to always be positive.
And did you find that you had to lose some friends along the way, or negative people that were in your life?
To be fair, all the friends that I've got, I still have, because I picked very wisely, and they're all still there. My daughter's 22 now, so she knows a lot of my friends are way before she was even around. So
Right.
No, that's good, man. Keep your circle tight and keep it right is what I always say. Definitely. So you know, it seems like you were one of the lucky people who seem to have had this positive mindset from a very early age, even though you was brought up in difficult circumstances. How did that make you different to other people, or were you know always that you always surrounded by positive people, or did people just?
I mean, growing up, adults weren't my biggest friends. So basically, I just had to learn for myself and fend for myself quite a lot. And then I think having my daughter basically got the family all back together again. And then basically, she basically took out all the negativity. But I mean, I still have some grudges, but that can be talked about later on down the line. But yeah, you just had to be positive.
Good.
And just take it from there, and not basically let that mold you, because a lot of people that were either in care or had things happen to them, it has taken down another path, which is not on them. It's just the stress and trauma. It's not great.
Yeah. But I'm so glad that you've got that attitude that you're going to make a change for your daughter and your husband's future, and that change starts with yourself and taking responsibility for that. And I think you know that's the key where a lot of people kind of fail sometimes. That they always want to try and blame for their current situation, don't realize that they have the power to change. Yeah.
Correct.
Very much so. So look, was there any sporting events that you was looking forward to, Angela, or any big major events which got cancelled?
I'm not really a massive sports person, but I mean, I have always holidays booked from like February right the way throughout the whole year. So everything got basically cancelled. So I think the biggest thing for me outside of sport, I had 2 festivals, one in LA with my daughter, and I was going to the reggae festival in Rotterdam, which all got cancelled. So, yeah.
And listen, we're talking about festivals. Well, one of the biggest festivals to get cancelled was, of course,
Carnival.
Oh, Notting Hill Carnival, man. I was like, nope, they're not going to do it. They're not going to cancel Carnival. They can't cancel Carnival. It's impossible for them. Sorry?
Trinidad's cancelled.
Yeah. And it's cancelled for this year coming too. So
correct. Massive. I love Trinidad Carnival.
Well, I for one, I'm glad that they cancelled Trinidad Carnival. I've never seen so much debauchery in all of my life. It was like watching Game of Thrones live. That's the only way I can describe Trinidad Carnival. It's a cesspit of Indian. It's because I can't whine. That's the truth. I can't whine, so I'm just jealous. I'm just watching everybody having a good time. Like and I can't get involved because I'm so English. I get winded. I win myself if I listen. I get a stitch if I try and do that. It's yeah, but yeah, it's a shame it's been postponed. And I don't know. I mean, even like traditional things like Glastonbury, Wimbledon got cancelled as well. So the Euros got cancelled, and they never cancel football. You know,
and I think that's the key. You know, I mean, I've always said once you see supporters going back en masse, then that will tend to be the key to everybody else, because to have 40,000, 50,000 people crowded together must mean that the government believes that it's okay to congregate. But it's not happening yet.
Tracy Angel says also check Money Supermarket. Is that Money Supermarket? MSC for best stocks and shares, as Angela suggested, buying now. Denise Francis also says her cousin was meant to be representing Jamaican gymnastics in Tokyo 20. Oh,
imagine all that training. And
yeah. However, they did say that coronavirus or no coronavirus, the Olympics will continue in 2021. So we'll have to watch and see.
Tracy says she loves her carnival.
Yeah, look at them.
She says she loves that carnival, but she couldn't keep up either, Mr. C.
You know what? We should dance together.
Michelle says that Trinidad Carnival is Game of Thrones live and direct in your face. Charmaine says Trinidad Carnival is brilliant because she loves Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Listen, Brenda, I'm doing yoga so that I can be flexible. I'm not trying to put myself in a knot with someone. Have you? Listen, mate. No. It's too much flesh and debauchery for me. It's too much. The Bible says, "Lead us not into temptation," and really, I think it's a translation. Is a mistranslation. The Bible actually said, "Lead us not into Trinidad Carnival," because that itself is temptation. Me not got there.
I wonder how many people in the comments go to Trinidad or have gone to Trinidad every year, because you do get a big, strong contingent from the UK that it's like a religious pilgrimage, isn't it?
And again, there were some festivities which were to take place in Europe as well. Of course, we've always got the Amsterdam Soca Carnival. Again, in Ibiza, you've got the massive Soca Carnival, what takes place over there, Soca Festival, I should say, what takes place over there. Those two were cancelled. But then we had a moment. We had a moment in the middle of summer where, you know, we saw something happen which almost felt like, I can't believe this, what I'm watching. I'm used to seeing and hearing about this particular type of situation, but this particular thing, it touched us in a way that I think no other situation like this has touched us before. Of course, we're talking about the moment where the whole world watched as George Floyd's life was pressed out of him by the very people who are supposed to be protecting and serving him. Angela, as a mother, what were your thoughts going through your head when you heard or you witnessed what had happened to George Floyd?
Yeah. As you said, I mean, it was hard. It was very, very, very hard. And obviously you see a lot of videos. Saw Sandra as well. And yeah, it's triggering. Again, always trying to be positive, but I always want to know what's going on and what physically happened as well. So yeah, when that happened, I said, no, it's not going to be an easy ride. This is going to go over the edge now.
Yeah. Tony?
You know, I mean, I was just shocked that what was it, 8 minutes, 46 seconds, and we watched every minute of his life being squeezed out of him. I mean, it was quite shocking to watch a man die in real time. This wasn't a movie. This was some sort of so-called arrest. And, you know, you saw the man's life being choked out of him live on TV. I mean, there were so many different sort of emotions going through me at the time. It was hard to watch. It was really hard to watch. And then the aftermath of it, obviously the reaction of the people, obviously. But you know what always gets me sometimes, and I know it's easy for me to say this, but sometimes I think, why don't some of these people push these police off? And even if they get arrested, but man, the guy's going to live. Do you know what I mean? But I mean, it's easier said than done. You know,
I think definitely, Tony, it's easier said than done. You know, if it's in the UK, I know for a fact if I saw that happening in the UK, I would definitely intervene. In America, I would definitely think twice because, I think as soon as you make that kind of move towards the police officer, you now know your life is in danger, and they have guns, or unless you're licensed to carry it. But however, it's only going to end up one way for you, because there's always going to be more police than you have bullets, to be honest. Or that you know, there's always going to be more police than you. So, you know, you can't shoot every single one of those police officers in the leg to maim them so that they don't harm you. Because as soon as another police officer comes on the scene and finds that you shot a police officer, they're going to shoot to kill you, because they shoot to kill us. We're not armed. So, however, something different happened with the whole with the passing of George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd. We started to see things happening in a way that I've never seen happen before. Parts of the world where I wasn't even aware that they had any, how can I put it, compassion for people of our race. We saw people in the Philippines. We saw people all over the world saying Black Lives Matter. And and as much as, you know, no matter what happens, we can't bring George Floyd back. I do believe that somehow he has been, I use this term really lightly, almost like a sacrificial lamb for us as Black people, because is it just me, or has anybody else witnessed that there seems to be a change towards the attitude towards Black people now in definitely in this country? Or am I disillusioned?
A little bit of a disillusional, because basically it's still a privilege. Unless they have friends that they have to communicate with, they're going to carry on about their life. Ask them next year the same thing. Oh, why did you put up a black square? Or what is Black Lives Matters? And you're going to get a blank face because they're oblivious. It's not them. It doesn't affect them. So you may have a handful that are brilliant and they are interested, but not the rest. No.
Tony.
I think in a positive way, it was a wake-up call for a lot of Black people.
Definitely.
A lot of us have become very comfortable in Babylon. You know, some of us are doing well. We got 2 tree house, we go on tree holidays, we've got 2 tree cars, and we can plan our year out with all our holidays or whatever. And then something like this happens and it arrests your attention, because after all the good times you've been having, all the good friends you've got, the nice people at work you went to drink with, ultimately, this is what they think about you. And not only that, you saw the sort of covert prejudice and racism online when you saw how people were saying, oh, well, George Floyd was a criminal anyway, and blah, 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 and this and that. And, you know, why Black people are always moaning and complaining about this and that, you know, so siding with the police. So on the front end, yeah, you're seeing, you know, we had, you know, 4 women on loose women. That was a big thing. But then even then, when you saw the reaction to that, right? What, did I wake up in Africa or something, right? You know, the underbelly of all this of all this facade of, well, you know, black people now, you know, it's something where they can say, well, you know, black people are progressing more than ever, but are they really? Because the underlying trend and the current of feeling towards them has not changed. So in one way, yes, I applaud that we're having more presence and screen time on TV. Steve McQueen makes all these movies, and we're getting prime time viewing. And you know, some of my white neighbors have got Black Lives Matter on their window. But that is literally window dressing. Literally.
Well, listen, Tony. What you've got to do is you've got to knock on their door on New Year's Eve and see if you can get some fruit or drink, and then you'll see whether that's real progress. But I just want to. Too bad. I just want to say, however, I've heard both of your viewpoints. However, I still believe that I see things differently now because, you know, if we look at Loose Women, for example, as we said, for the first time, we had 4 beautiful professional black queens heading up that program for the first time in its history. And if we think about the viewership of a program like Loose Women, the amount of it's probably millions who actually watch that program. And then you look at the minority, the tiny minority of those people who are sending negative comments. When we look at it as a percentage of the people who actually were watching that program, who did embrace it, who did thought, you know what, I've never seen 4 black women on Loose Women before. You know what? Hey, Judy Love, she's a bit hilarious, she isn't she? She's all right. I can understand the vernacular. You know what I mean? It's all right. So we're always going to have people who hate us. But I think that is a very small minority. And I think what's happening now is that those people are getting challenged in a way that they've never been challenged before. And we've seen this with the likes of when they flew the banner over the football game to say white lives matter. And both of them lost their job for it. We saw a white woman in a park in New York accusing a black man of threatening her when nothing nagosa. And again, she lost her job because of it. And for me,
it happens a lot on Black Twitter. No. If they find something on Black Twitter, they get outed big time. Wow. University placements get gone. Jobs get gone. It's only because Twitter's not online or you don't see it, but it happens on there.
Yeah,
regular.
Well, yeah, I've been watching and I've been there with my popcorn.
You know, and that's a good point because I did forget to mention that. What's happening now is that what LGBT has been getting for years is now starting. Those same sort of laws are coming around now, slowly but surely. To protect our rights. So we saw how the FA chairman lost his job a few weeks ago, didn't we? Yeah. And I think recently a Coronation Street director got sacked because of some comments he made on Twitter. So it is about time, and I think Now Chat Show has really has really kind of crystallized it. She said yes, there is more awareness. However, the bias is still there. The institutional racism is still there. So there's a bit of both. There's progress because of that awareness. For the first time in the history of, you know, black people, the world has become more aware of what's going on, and there have been sort of incremental changes. Of course, the changes that we want to see with regard to the oppression generally, the high numbers of incarcerated brothers and sisters, you know, how the education system treats us, reparations, these larger agendas have yet to be addressed. But, okay, we're seeing these little incremental moves. So let's see where it goes from here.
Definitely. Just lost my track of thoughts for 1 second. I was just reading some of the comments. Racists are more bold again nowadays, says Donna Ben. Denise Francis says black people are in everything now and it's about time. Adriana Evans says, we cannot change everyone. It's about the majority. Makel? Is this Machel, the soca singer? No, sorry. Not really, Mr. T. Ari Loose Women. A few people complained, but many more thought the same, but didn't turn into keyboard warriors. Now, again, you see this kind of speculation. Michelle, Makel, don't want to pronounce your name incorrectly. There's a lot of times we make assumptions for other people based on what we feel, but it's not necessarily the truth. I used to feel exactly the same about saying that the majority of the UK is racist. And again, being a comedian who travels up and down the UK, there was many a times when I'd go to a city and be in a venue where I'm the only black person in there. When I say the only black person, I'm talking about not even the security or the people who work in the kitchen or cleaning are black. Everybody is white. And I'd make the assumption that, oh my God, I'm going to have a hard time tonight. Most of these people are racist. They've probably never seen a black man in real life and blah, blah, blah. And when I come off that stage, the love that some of those people gave me and actually said to me, oh my God, I thought you was the funniest one on there. They should have had you on last, mate. The other comics were rubbish, mate. You were brilliant. And then I'd have to be looking at thinking, but hold on, how does what happened? I said, and then you realize that there is racism, but also there's a lot of subliminal brainwashing going on where people have never really seen the real us. They've only seen this distorted image of what the media portrays about us. So that's why they have these feelings. And then when they do come into contact with us, they see us for who we really are. And that's why, again, the media has always perpetrated this so-called myth of what black people are about. And again, we're seeing a lot of that being changed now through the adverts, through the inclusion of TV programs. But again, we need to see it in so many other different areas as well.
See, I hear you on that point, but I think on Michelle's point, I think the problem really is that we are traumatized.
Oh, 100%.
See, if you're a child that was traumatized by an adult, every adult is going to be suspicious to you.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Even the most well-intentioned adults will be looked upon with suspicion. We are traumatized people, so we it's almost like we can see things that nobody can see. It's there. Sometimes, in very rare occasions, we're absolutely wrong, but a lot of the time we're right. We can sense things before they happen. It could be a look, it can be an expression, it can be a body move. Something will tell you that something isn't right, but we are traumatized, and that trauma causes us to misjudge individuals at times, and then we actually hold that narrative often throughout our lives.
But wouldn't we say that's the same kind of thing what happened with Liam Neeson then? That he was traumatized by an event, and because of that event, he therefore looked at people a certain way.
It was only one event.
Boy.
And that's the problem, isn't it? You see, when your whole life has been a series of events, not just in person, but in the media and hearing what people say and what they type online, you understand that this is a trend. I mean, this is why we're going to talk about this in a little while in the history section, but this is why, why understanding history for us is so important, because surely no other group on the planet has to endure such a sustained oppressive behavior from others constantly while being gaslighted.
Very good comment by Michelle, saying, I'm not saying a majority, but in my experience, a lot of people talk to me about Black Lives Matter, etc., because they think I'm a safe bet being the only black person they're in contact with. Very, very good point. Very, very good point. However, it's through these conversations, I think that's where the learning grows. And we've never been able to have these conversations for the longest of time. The last time that Britain has had a proper conversation about race, it's got to be in the 70s. It's got to be in the 70s.
Or the Brixton riots as well.
Well, even still, that wasn't even a real conversation. It was like, oh, let us go and do the research and we'll come back with a report. That's not a conversation. You've gone off and spoken by yourselves and come back and given us your findings. That's not a conversation.
I don't think there's ever been a conversation, quite frankly. I think now is the time. 2020 has been that time when this subject has come onto the table firmly, and it's not going to be removed from the table. The only question is how far can we progress our agenda?
Very, very good question. Very, very good question. So, how do we progress our future? I do believe that this is a moment in time unlike any other for us, being blacks in Britain or blacks wherever in the world. As we mentioned before, we've seen the likes of Netflix said that they're going to put 100 million into black-owned banks, which was absolutely fantastic, until my son said to me, "Dad, have we got any black banks in Britain?" The Indians have, the Pakistanis have, the Arabs have, the Chinese
Nigerian
have.
bank. It's in city somewhere.
Nigerian, where we need to find out. We need to find out. Let's get proactive. Let's stop waiting and let's get proactive, people. Moving the conversation on, ladies and gentlemen, even though this is absolutely gripping, and I love it when we talk about ourselves, especially in such a positive light. Entertainment for us has always been, I don't know, a release, a magical portal which connects us with the universe and energy. However, when it comes to entertainment, we are unlike any other ethnic group in the world. And the gentleman by the name of Swizz Beatz decided that within this moment of nobody being able to put on concerts, nobody being able to go out and see their favorite artists, he decided to come up with this concept called Versus, where we'd get two of our lovable, likable artists and put them side by side to perform on Instagram. And oh my days, did he throw up some gems. First of all, I think it was 112 and Jagged Edge.
Yep.
Babyface and who was your favorite verses? Let me know who your favorite verses were, and we'll come to the best at the end, because there was one which was unlike any other. No. One I can remember, Patti LaBelle and Gladys Knight.
Oh, that was excellent. That was an excellent show. Really was. I enjoyed that.
You know, I mean, come on. Absolute queens of soul, without a shadow of a doubt. Patti LaBelle, her voice, her pose, her posture, her regalness as regards to how she commands respect and love. And then another one, Gladys Knight. I mean, it's just like, that was a masterclass in singing, in vocal ability, lyrical content.
And you forget the hit songs that these artists have until they sing. You think, oh yeah, I remember that song. You know, and their voices just seem to retain that beauty about it. You know, just so effortless.
Oh, Erica and Jill Scott was brilliant.
Michelle, oh come on. Erykah Badu versus Jill Scott was again,
Melrose says she's never seen the show Versus. Oh dear. Come on, Melrose.
Get yourself an Instagram and check out Versus. VERZUZ. Definitely, you'll spend hours enjoying yourself.
Charmaine says some Versus were better than others.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Brandy and Monica was decent. It was okay. It was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay. So there were some which were definitely better than others. Some the sound quality were better than others. However, there was one versus that for me, Tony, I'll let you take this one.
No, it was Bounty Killer and Beenie Man. That was an incredible performance. And you know, considering the history of these two artists, how they were quote unquote enemies and did counteraction songs towards each other throughout their careers, one could argue that their careers developed because of each other in the way that it did. And I think their longevity in the business was due to that rivalry that they had. It was a very fierce rivalry, and they've only been friends in recent years. So the fact that they came on to do verses together, and in such a, they were serious, but it was jovial. You know, Beenie Man with his usual antics, pushing Beanie out of the way, and then Beanie coming with his style, and then the whole scene with the cop who turns up to shut the whole thing down. And the immortal words from Beenie Man, "You want to be that guy?" And you know, he actually made a song after that called "You Want to Be That Guy." No, it was just an incredible event. I mean, the views. I think they said it was 500,000.
500,000.
500,000 people that watched that, and the servers were struggling. But it was an incredible event to see. Yeah.
And the unity between the two of them, you could see that they genuinely had total respect for each other. And there was a lovely moment at the end where they were singing Bob Marley, "One Love." It was just, for me, I think it was just a template of showing artists that we can do so much more when we come together, when we put down the rivalry, we put down the hate, we put down the ego. When we come together, it's unbeatable. It was just a lovely moment. And that, I think for me, entertainment wise, that was probably my highlight of this whole lockdown situation. It was just absolutely amazing. Is there anybody? Snoop versus DMX was fab, but the air was blue. Can
you imagine?
I'm not surprised. It was probably blue with with ganja as well. Has anybody ever seen that policeman since that show though?
He's probably famous now. Isn't he? He probably walks around with a T-shirt that says "I am that guy." I am that.
See the guy. For me, for me, that guy T-shirt.
Yeah. It's one of those verses you could watch again. Honestly, if you were sort of like wanting something to tune into, you could watch
it 3 times.
Look, there you go. See?
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we've come to that time of the show, ladies and gentlemen, almost how it is coming up to the time of the year when all things must come to an end. However, we couldn't finish this section of the show without paying a homage to a few of the people who unfortunately won't make it into 2021 in a physical form. However, we will definitely carry their spirit forward into 2021. Amongst these people, we would like to add to the list who they might not be celebrities to yourselves or to all of us in general. However, they were a superstar and a celebrity to these individuals. So first of all, we mentioned Denise Francis, her mother. Long may her soul rise in peace. Richard Blackwood's mother. Quincy, the comedian's father. And also these people, ladies and gentlemen, we shall miss them, but we should carry them within our spirits forever.
When you wake up in the morning and you realize the day is dawning, the sun shines through your window pane, another day in your life begins again. Don't feel no way. You're unhappy because you're want you to know that don't feel no way. Gonna love you each and every day. Whatever your cup, whether you're good or you're bad, he will always love you. So please don't feel sad. Don't feel they want it. Oh no, don't feel no way. When you wake up in the
Oh, pull up,
morning.
Selector. Pull up. Yes, of course, Janet Kay is still with us. However, I thought that her vocals were absolutely wonderful to just sit underneath the images of all our wonderful people who had passed. And that was courtesy of No Bass Like Home, which was, again, a wonderful online event, which you can still watch on YouTube, covering the history of reggae music and the importance in London, especially Northwest London and the London Borough of Brent. So we just want to thank those at Brent and also Janet Kay for lending their wonderful vocals and that bit of film for us for that moment. So look, we're coming up to the end of the year, and as we reflect on all the things, the negative things that have happened, it's time for us now to set our mindsets, as Angela's correctly said, for the things what we want to do positively for 2021. Yes, there will be obstacles. Yes, there will be challenges. Yes, there will be vaccinations for us to dodge or take. However, we now have to decide what we're going to do as a people, as a person, within our own lives and within our own household. And we think it's only fitting that we finished the show, ladies and gentlemen, as we started this Black History Month journey way back in October, when Tony first delivered some nuggets as regards to our ancestry. We want him to finish off today's show, ladies and gentlemen. So please, a round of applause for our Black historian, Mr. Tony Crossbody.
And of course, we want to thank Angela for coming onto the show as our special guest. Angela, we really appreciate your presence. We certainly want you to have to come back again and tell us a little more about your story. Very inspirational. And I know the right person won the competition and earned that right to be in the show. So Angela, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Come back soon, Angela.
I will.
Saying a good evening to Patrick Solomon. Good evening, sir. Thank you, sir, for your best wishes. And now we're going to continue with our discussion on Black history. Now, for those of you who've been following the show for the last few weeks, we have come to the review section. And by review, I mean test. We're going to have a test right now. So
I like it, teacher. I like it, teacher. I like it.
So we're going to see whether you've been listening to the show, right, for these last few weeks. I'm about to play a video clip of a brother in America who's just had his DNA results. What I want you to do is when you hear the results, I want you to type in the comments box, what do his results mean? Okay? So Mr. C, I'm sure we'll know the answer, but let's see if you guys...
I'm not going to say a word.
Right. Let's see if you guys who've been watching the show understand what his DNA results really mean. So if this is the first time you've come on the show and you're listening to this, maybe this might not mean anything to you. Maybe the information might sort of grate against what you already know about history, but stick with it and all will be revealed. So let's play the video and see if you can work out what this man's heritage is. Should be here in a...
Analyzing your by chromosome DNA, we have determined that you share paternal genetic ancestry with people in Spain, Portugal, and the Netherlands. I know what my family on my dad's side looks like. Okay.
Really?
Huh? Below is a copy of your Y chromosome polymorphisms used in analysis. You have inherited this segmented DNA through your father that has been passed on consistently from father and son over the last 500 to 2,000 years.
Wow.
This is, you understand, like my dad's side, at least I know him, I mean, he's dark. He's not like really dark, but he's darker than me. This is throwing me off. I don't understand why African heritage wouldn't even show up on my dad's. Your sequence, similarly, a similarity score is 100%, which means that we are 100% confident in your result. Enclosed, you will find a certificate of ancestry that authenticates your paternal ancestry and a booklet to help you understand and share your results.
Okay, that's it. You can pull that. So, according to his results, his paternal lineage, that is the lineage through his father's line, takes him to Spain, Portugal, and the Netherlands. Now, does that mean that he's a white man? We'll get to that. But put your comments in the box if you can make any sense of his results.
Come on,
Next.
people, don't sit on the fence. Don't sit on the fence. Let's get your comments in. Come on.
Let's have a look at the next slide. And all of this is about information, right? How do you receive your information? Where did you get your information from? Your information that you have influences your beliefs, influences effectively what you do and how you live. Last week we discussed that the descendants of enslaved persons are captives of an empire. And the empire controls the narrative of information that you receive. How so? Well, ever since you were a child, you sat in front of a television. And a lot of information that you've received, some of you now are in your 30s, 40s, 50s. So 40, 50 years in front of the TV, that's a lot of information that you have absorbed. You've also gone into the education system. Next slide. You've also gone into the education system. Some of you have gone into higher education to get your degrees, your masters, right? So that's another avenue. So you have the TV, you have the education system, and all of your time, the information that you have received has been controlled. Next slide. So what we find ourselves doing as people, as a habit, is when we watch TV, we don't realize that we're picking up the subtle messages or the subliminal messages that are teaching us what we are supposed to know. And much of that has really nothing to do with your history. Whatever history you've received from the TV, or from the movies for that matter, has always been about what? Enslavement. What else? Being a servant. What else? Being a butler. What else? Being a criminal. What else? Allegedly coming from a land that is in dire poverty, full of corrupt rulers. This is what the whole population has absorbed as information. Next slide. So that's the television, that's education, and that is also the church. We spoke last week about how the church operates. The churches are basically nothing more than charities. Charities means that they are tax exempt. And in order to be tax exempt, you have to make sure that you are not teaching anything that is subversive to the empire. That's how you keep your status. So right from birth, we have been absorbing nothing more, for the most part, than indoctrination. Next slide. Mr. C, would you just like to read the definition of indoctrination for us, please?
Of course. The process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically. I would never subject children to religious indoctrination.
Right. So that's an example of how you would use the word. So indoctrination is teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically. So when you were at school, you got textbooks that you were to copy from. You had to do exams based upon the information in those textbooks. You watch history programs or science programs where you accept uncritically the information given to you because the person is a scientist wearing a white coat. Nothing has been critically examined. And your history has never been given to you in any form of narrative, and it's never been contextualized. It's always the same one-dimensional cardboard cutout of slavery or subservience. Next slide.
Paternal genetic ancestry with people in Spain, Portugal, and the Netherlands. I know what my family on my dad's side looks like, okay?
Right. So, what is the story? Why is this brother finding that in his DNA he has Spain, Portugal, and the Netherlands? Let's talk about this, because this is very important and it's very much tied in to your history. Next slide. Now, a lot of us know about the history in Spain and Portugal, but mostly in regard to the Moors, who conquered Spain and ruled it for about 800 years. What most people don't realize is that there were other black groups besides the Moors who were Arabs, who were Muslims, but there were other black groups that actually lived in Spain during that time. Around the 1400s, there was something called a Reconquista, which was basically the Catholics retook Spain, driving the Muslims out. The Muslims and another set group of black people, known as Jews, were forcefully converted to Catholicism. If you do some research on the Catholic Inquisition, you will find this information. The Jews particularly were treated barbarically. Many of them burned at the stake. Pregnant women were cut open. They were tortured in just indescribable ways for not converting to Catholicism. If you look at the map, you can see where Spain and the tip of Africa or Morocco meet. Many of these Jews fled Spain and Portugal and ended up in Africa. Next slide. Now, if you probably won't be able to see this very well, but this is a map drawn in 1747 of West Africa. Many of these Jews fled into this area known as the Maghreb. I'm not sure how you're watching this, but in the middle of that West African map, there's a swathe of land known as Negro land. And it was called Negro land for a reason. Many of those Jews fled into that area where they sought solace from the Portuguese persecution. Next slide. If we look at some information here regarding the history of Jews in Africa, we are told that Sephardi Jews, or Jews that were in Spain, these were black Jews, were living primarily in the Maghreb of North Africa, including Morocco, Algeria, Libya, and Tunisia, as well as Sudan and Egypt. And some were established early in the diaspora, others after the expulsion. The expulsion, in other words, they were kicked out from Iberia, Iberia being Spain and Portugal, in the late 15th century. So many of these people left because they couldn't take the persecution, they didn't want to become Catholics, and the Portuguese government basically took everything they had, and those that remained were persecuted. Now, when these Jews went into Africa, there was already a community of Jews already there. Next slide. This is a map showing that Jews had migrated into Africa from as early as the 5th century BC. They had set up communities in Africa, bringing along with them their own Torah scrolls, or what we would call the Old Testament version of the Bible, and had settled in Africa, in the west and towards the south. So when the Portuguese Jews left Portugal and went into Africa, they already had ready-made communities that they could hide in. This now tells us one thing. Often black people say, well, black people only know the Bible because the Europeans came there and indoctrinated them. That's how they got it. But actually, if you're looking at history correctly, you will realize that these people already knew a lot about the Bible because their ancestors wrote it. So R&B City says, are you talking about Falasha Jews? No. We know about the Falasha Jews who are primarily around East Africa and Somalia. No. These were Jews that were concentrated particularly in the Maghreb and in the West. This is where the Portuguese Jews fled to in order to escape Portuguese persecution. They didn't want to become Catholics. Next slide. So let me just quote some information for you, right, from this book, which was written in the 1800s. It's called A Vindication of the Moral, Intellectual, and Religious Capabilities of the Colored Portion of Mankind, with particular reference to the African race. Oh, what a long title. What a long title. Next slide. So in talking about these very Jews who fled into Africa, we are told, page 66 of the book says, so it's the Jews who retain, so they didn't lose it, their religious rights as Jews and the distinct habits which keep them, notice, isolated from other nations. So these black Jews did not mix with the indigenous population in Africa. They were a very close community. It goes on to say, though thus separate from the African population, they are black and resemble the other Negroes in every respect as to physical character. So, going back to the story, the gentleman said he has family in his DNA that goes back to Spain, Portugal, and Holland, which doesn't make any sense unless you understand the narrative of what was going on there and who were the people in Spain. These were black people. See? R&B City are the Falasha Jews, the original Jews. We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Next slide. Here is well, how would you describe this? This is like a travel manual from the 1860s. It's called Friends Intelligentsia. And basically, it's about explorers who went around Africa recording the peoples, their cultures, what they saw, who were there, and what they were doing. Next slide. So I'll read what it says. From the top, it says, it's talking about a Jew who had accompanied a German traveler as far as Timbuktu, found near the boundary of Bambara a large number of Jewish Negroes. Nearly every family among them possesses the law of Moses written upon parchment. Stop. So this traveler had first-hand knowledge of Jews, black Jews that he met when he was traveling throughout the Maghreb, of a community of black Jews who lived as a close community, who already had the Bible. That is what they were living by.
That's amazing, Tony, man. That's a big discovery, that, mate.
This pushes out this narrative that black people tell each other, that it was the white man that brought the Bible
to Africa, and they left with all the yeah.
Next slide. Here's another book called Jews and Moors in Spain. Obviously, I'm making sure that you see the cover so you can see that I'm actually using legitimate sources. And these books are very, very old. Often they come from the 1700s and the 1800s, from people who traveled in these areas and were able to write about them. Okay,
also, so all of these books you'll be able to find out from the British Library as well. The British Library will have all of these books.
Absolutely. You can even actually download, you can actually look at them. Some of these books are still available on the internet in digital form if you want to look them up. Next slide. So in this particular book, I believe that's page 213, right?
15.
So 15, thank you. So talking about the context here is about what the Portuguese were trying to do to change the religion of these Jews into Catholics. They refused. So what did they do to them? Mr. C, could you just read that underline there, please?
It says thousands were sold as slaves.
Thousands of them were sold as slaves. Now you have to remember that by this time, Portugal had already had friendly relationships with quite a few African nations. And we're going to see it. We're going to look into detail into one of those nations. We know that the Portuguese themselves did not go into the interior to get these people, but they had help. Next slide.
May those who died rest in peace. May those who return find their roots. May humanity never again perpetrate such injustice against humanity, and we, the living, vow to uphold this. Slave exit to waiting boat. As we walk out the castle, we all carry a lot of responsibilities. We are just going to preach against injustice. And from now onwards, we see ourselves as brothers. This plaque was brought by the National House of Chiefs as a mission statement of the whole tour of the castle.
What role did they kind of play in keeping this slave trade going?
The Chiefs were there, and then this slavery stuff was going on. So people are of the view that some of the chiefs also participated. Yeah, so that is why they brought this, to show us like apology of what some of their predecessors also did. Yeah.
Right, now some of you have probably been to this place called Elmina Castle. This was built by the Portuguese, who were able to hold a fort there and basically hold slaves in this place. Now, how did the Portuguese manage to get slaves? How did they manage it? They didn't do it by themselves. As I mentioned earlier, they had alliances to help them. Next slide.
Denise Francis was saying she actually went to that castle. It was life-changing. You feel the spirit of our ancestors. You see the conditions of how they lived. It was heartbreaking.
Yes. Now Chacho says, when I went to Elmina Castle's, words cannot describe the energy there. Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
A question just before you continue though, Tony, from R&B City is saying, is it true that Christianity came out of Ethiopia? Or is this something you're going to reveal later on? Or...
The answer to that question is that Christianity came out of Ethiopia long before the Roman Catholic Church came into existence. But Christianity effectively was born in Israel, and when Israel was ransacked by the Romans, many fled, and they fled into Africa. And that kind of touches on the other question: are the Falasha Jews the original Jews? No, but they're very ancient set of Jews, but they're not the original Jews, because when the original Jews fled out of Israel, they had big communities in Egypt, and then they traveled south, and then they went into Ethiopia, Sudan, where many of them, the descendants of those Jews, are still there today. So they do play a very important part in that Jewish lineage, but they're not said the original, but they certainly were there, and they certainly were preaching biblical knowledge long before the Europeans came and long before the Roman Catholic Church was set up in the 4th century.
Thank you, Tony.
So going back now to this whole point about alliances and how the Portuguese managed to pull off slavery in the way that they did, they had a very good relationship with one particular set of people, not just one, but many, but I'll just pull this up as an example. And these were the people of Congo. So this is not the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is a nation known as Congo, Kongo. And I've just pulled up a little documentation talking about the history of it, and I'll read it for you because it says it much better than I can explain it. And it says that during the 1480s, the Portuguese came into contact with the Kingdom of the Congo, situated south of the Congo River, in what is today northern Angola. The Congo became powerful through war and capturing and enslaving the people they defeated. Fine, everybody does that. The Portuguese did not conquer this region, but chose rather to become allies of the Congo king. So this whole idea that people were enslaved because they were black doesn't hold water, because the Congo king was black, the Congo nation was black, yet the Portuguese chose not to enslave them. So it couldn't have been the color of their skin that every black person they saw, they wanted to enslave. They made alliances with many of these nations. Why? We're going to see. Excuse me. The Portuguese did not conquer this region, but rather to become allies of the Congo king. The king was eager to make use of Portuguese teachers and craftsmen to train his people. He also allowed Catholic missionaries to work among his people. The Portuguese traded guns for slaves captured by the Congo in wars against rival kingdoms in the interior. So the Portuguese wanted slaves, and in return for slaves, they gave the Congo people guns, which would help them in capturing more slaves. So this was an ongoing relationship, which of course meant that because of the military prowess now of the Congo people, they would be the mightiest people in the region. And whoever they warred against would be an easy capture. And this was the relationship that they had with Portugal. So to continue, in the last paragraphs, right, it said that in the 1490s, sugar plantations were established on the islands of Sao Tome and Principe. The Portuguese settlers on these islands used slaves, bought from the Congo traders to work on these plantations. Next slide. So just to explain, Portuguese had an alliance with the people of Congo. They wanted slaves to work their plantations. In return, they would pay the people of Congo with guns. Those guns allowed the people of Congo to get as many slaves as the Portuguese wanted. So there was an ongoing relationship that was mutually beneficial. Right? Now remember, Congo is what's today known as Northern Angola. Okay? So when we look now at this slide here that you're on your screen, it tells us that some historians have noted the presence of Sephardi Jews. Sephardi Jews are those who came from Spain, in Portugal, West Africa, by researching records from the Portuguese Inquisition. So this is the persecution to make them into Catholics, and they refused it, right? Relating to the New World. These show that there was a significant Sephardic presence in Angola and Guinea trading posts, and that Portuguese settlements were crucial to the development of crypto-Jewish diaspora across the Atlantic region. What's it saying in English, Tony Crossbody? Basically, it's saying that Jews lived around the Congo people. It was Jews that lived around the Congo people. And it was the Portuguese that hunted them out of Portugal and into Africa. Next slide. Here is a map of Africa, and you can see they're circled. A little island off the west coast is Sao Tome and Principe. So these are the places where those people who were captured by the Congo people were taken by the Portuguese to this place called Sao Tome, where they were made to work the plantation. Next slide. So, Mr. C, please, if you could read the whole paragraph for us, please. The history of Portuguese Sao Tome and Principe. Can you see that? Is okay?
Yeah, I think so. The first successful. I'm getting feedback. Okay, hold on. The first successful settlement of Sao Tome was established in 1493 by Alvaro Camvara, who received the land as a grant from the crown. Principe was settled in 1500 under a similar agreement. Attracting settlers proved difficult. However, most of the earliest inhabitants were undesirables sent from Portugal, mostly Jews.
Stop.
In time, these settlers found the excellent volcanic soil of the region suitable for agriculture, especially the growing of sugar.
Right. So, let's go back. The Portuguese had alliances with the people from Congo. The Congo were given guns in exchange for bringing slaves. So they took those slaves and sent them to Sao Tome. When you look at the history of Sao Tome, it tells you that these places were inhabited by undesirables. Why? So, undesirables, mostly Jews. Why were Jews known as undesirables in a Portuguese colony? Because they would not convert to Catholicism. They were seen as undesirable and only fit for slavery. Right? You're going to start to see a picture build up here in a second. Next slide. So, we looked at this book earlier. It's called The Jews and Moors in Spain. And we're told there, page 218, talking about the King of Portugal, how he revoked every privilege that the Jews had and rounded them up and had them sold as slaves. Now, Mr. C, if you could just read the bottom section, the white section. For some people, they might be surprised to see this.
The first Africans to arrive in Jamaica came in 1513 from the Iberian Peninsula.
Thank you. Many Jamaicans thought that they came from Africa. Well, yes, they did, some of them. But here we are told that the first Jamaicans to put their foot on Jamaican soil.
First Africans.
The first African. Well, that's what. Now, this is what they say, right? This is where it gets. This is where they try to confuse you by saying the first Africans, and this is where we get lost in terms of understanding the history, because they weren't Africans. Because the reason why we can say that, looking at that, they came out of the Iberian Peninsula. Right? We know that there was a campaign of persecution against the Jews to convert them to Catholicism. We know that they were living amongst a people known as the Congo people, who were in close alliances with the Portuguese. And in return for getting slaves to the Portuguese, they were given guns. We know that those same Portuguese were taken to Sao Tome. I believe, Michelle, it's St. Thomas. I believe that's the English name for it today. I might be wrong, but I think it's St. Thomas. But we also see that many of those who were sent to the Caribbean also came out of the Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain and Portugal. That's why some of you who are Jamaican might have heard your mothers or your grandmothers or your grandfather talk about how you are Portuguese or you are Jews. This is the history where it comes from. This is the reason why that brother in that video who had his DNA results finds his father's line has people that come out of Spain and come out of Portugal because they were black people that had to flee out of Spain and Portugal into Africa, where they were subsequently enslaved. And you will find that in Jamaica, if you talk to any Jamaicans, and especially the elderly, they will tell you about the Portuguese connection. Next slide.
Just to clarify that, yeah, Sao Tome and Principe is still called the same thing.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. I think St. Thomas is the English translation, in fact. So let's talk about this gentleman here. Sir William Brereton. All right. We're not going to go into too much, but basically he was a nobleman. He was also an author. He was an explorer, and he had the ability to travel around and write about his experiences. And he wrote this very interesting book that we're about to see. Next slide. So he wrote this book talking about Holland, the United Provinces, England, Scotland, and Ireland. So this is all about his travels. And on page 68, he talks about how he went to Holland and he visited a synagogue of Jews. And he described the Jews that he saw in the synagogue. Mr. C, would you just explain how to read that for us?
They're men most black, full of hair, and insatiably given unto women.
So there you go. So he describes these Jews in the synagogue where he visited as black men. And they love
insatiable, you know.
Insatiably
given unto women.
Right? So where was this that he went to? He was in Holland. What did the brother say in the video about his ancestry? Spain, Portugal, Holland. How did the Jews, the black Jews, get to Holland? When they fled Spain, many of them went into Northern Europe. Some of them came into the UK to flee persecution. And there was a big community of black Jews that lived in Amsterdam. And this nobleman, in his travels, went and wrote about it. Next slide. Now it's interesting with this whole story about slavery and Jews, that in the very book that the Jews are credited to writing, they wrote about a specific prophecy that had to do with them. If you were to go to your Bibles and look at Deuteronomy chapter 28:68, it talks about how these people would be taken away on ships, sold, and they would not be rescued. Coincidence? You decide. But many people have thought that the Bible is a white man's book. But how could it be when the original people who are credited writing the book were black? And would white people write a prophecy like this within the Bible? Next slide.
With people in Spain, Portugal, and the Netherlands. I know what my family on my dad's side looks like, okay?
Really?
Huh? Below is a copy of your Y chromosome polymorphisms used in analysis. You have inherited this segmented DNA through your father that has been passed on consistently from father and son over the last 500 to 2,000 years.
Wow.
This is, you understand, like my dad's side, at least I know him, I mean, he's dark. He's not like really dark, but he's darker than me. You know, this is throwing me off. I don't understand why.
So it's throwing him off. Why is it throwing him off?
All I want to know is what chicken is he eating? That's what I want to know, because them arms, they're big.
Real. But why is it throwing him off? It's throwing him off because the information he's received as a child, and even the history that he's been given as a black man from black historians, make no sense to him as to why his ancestors would have anything to do with Spain, Portugal, or Holland. And that equally is the same for us here in the UK. Whatever history we've been taught, even in the black community, it mostly concentrates on slavery. And the problem with that is that when you teach about slavery and the horrors of slavery, after a while, black people don't want to hear about that. What black people want, they want this thing contextualized. Slavery did not exist in a vacuum all by itself. The people who were enslaved were a people before they were enslaved. And there are people after they were enslaved. They're here today. Look in the mirror, you will see them. And they have a history. And the problem in black history is that the clues, right? The clues that are available to historians are very limited. It's very much like being a detective when looking into black history, right? You have a murder, you have a body, a dead body, right? And now you've got to work out how this person got killed. And you've got a certain amount of clues to work with. And there can only be one story. This person couldn't have been killed many ways. Because when the forensics come and they tell you, look, it was a blow to the head done by someone, you know, you guys have watched CSI, you know what I'm talking about, right? The guy who did it was left-handed. We could tell by the way the side of the head that the blow was given. So then we have to look at a variety of different evidence to draw a conclusion that is beyond reasonable doubt as to how this crime took place. So we look at eyewitness testimony. We look at DNA. We look at the individual's past criminal record. We look at motive. So there are so many different angles from which you can look at a crime in order to come to a conclusion that is beyond reasonable doubt. The history of black people is that dead body. And the clues that are available are a lot of these ancient books, are eyewitness testimony. There are even high-ranking politicians today who've outwardly said that this is the case, this is the origins of these people. You have the people who are alive today who know their history about slavery. So you have to put these pieces together to draw what is the most reasonable conclusion about their history. And to date, we have not really, apart from a few instances, had a full narrative. So we have discussed a few weeks ago, and I'm not going to go into it tonight. If you want to know more, I've covered this story about a month straight with lots of detail as to why slavery took place, who were these actual Jews, right? Where they came from, why this all took place. So if you're interested in that, then please feel free, go to MediaNet.tv on YouTube, and there's a Black History section that you can actually look at that and go through those details.
Yeah, we made it very simple for you.
Yeah, we made it very simple for you. But for today, I'm trying to give you a narrative, a contextual narrative as to your origins. And we have, and there's an abundance of evidence that proves this. There are numerous people who have had DNA testing. We have evidence of the slave ship manifests, which prove who the people were that were put on those ships. We have more eyewitness testimony. I mean, there's abundance. We just don't have enough time today to actually go into all that detail. But I'm going to leave you with this last slide. And this comes from a politician from South Africa, a high-ranking politician. Some of you will know him. I want you to listen very, very carefully. The audio isn't the greatest, but listen to what he has to say. Next slide.
One day I will tell you why I'm Musabi. Musabi are black Jews. But not today. I'll explain to you why I'm a black Jew. Because we come from very far. Where these Jews claim they come from, that's where we come from. Actually, the original Jew is black. But let me leave that debate. We'll deal with it some other day.
So I hope you heard what he said. This gentleman is Julius Malema. He's the leader of the EFF Party of South Africa. And has made it very clear, according to his understanding, that his people are from far away from South Africa and that the original Jews are black and that he himself is part of those people. So it's really left to you, black people, to obviously do your own research. You know, don't rely upon what I'm telling you. I'm just showing you some of the links and giving you a story, a narrative, a context with the information that is available. You know, a couple of weeks ago, we saw what Louis Farrakhan had to say about it. We've seen video footage of Jewish rabbis, what they've said about it. And now we have a high-ranking politician. Next slide. So if you're interested in basically looking into this a bit more, I recommend this book. It's called The Bible is Black History. It is not a heavy read, but it does conceptualize the thoughts that I've brought to you in a little bit more detail for you to do further research. And that's what I encourage you to do. The whole point of this platform is to help you to go forward and do your own research and draw your own conclusions. Because obviously, when we've spent most of our lives watching TV and being educated by the empire and the system, then we're not going to learn much from those sources about where we might have come from.
Tony, man, what can we say? A wonderful way to finish the show for the year. It's been a traumatic one. It's been a different one. However, just the way how it's started doesn't mean to say it has to finish that way. We have to stand upon some kind of knowledge and understanding of self in order to move forwards in life. And Tony, you've given us a real good solid foundation there. Again, as good as any Bible study I've ever had, as good as any Black history study I've ever had, and combined together, it makes a very, very strong foundation for myself and for my family. So I want to say thank you. I look forward to what nuggets you bring in 2021, sir.
Just to answer a question, Patrick asks, is there any more books that you can recommend? Yes, last week I recommended a book called The Negro Question. It's a set of 4 books. Again, light reading, but lots of detail. I'd recommend you look that up on Amazon. The Negro Question. I believe it comes in 4 parts.
Well, listen, we want to also say, in addition to thank you, Tony, we want to thank each and every single one of you who has been watching with us every single week, been along on this journey. Yes, let's welcome back Angela.
Yay!
Hi, thank you guys.
Hey. So we want to thank each and every single one of you, and hopefully it will be one of you guys next time who'll be our celebrity guest, our special guest like Angela. So look, whatever you're doing for your New Year's celebration, keep it
quiet. Keep it hush hush. Got Pretty Patel got her neighbors, them a watch you.
As for me and my household, we're not doing anything at all. I'll send you the invite, Tony. And anybody holding an illegal party, I deplore you to send me the invitation so I can try and persuade you not to have it.
Well, just make sure there's only 28 people there. Then there's no 10K fine.
Oh, you can have 28 people.
And no 10K fine.
I didn't know this.
What's the maximum? Is it 30?
It's 30.
Oh yeah, so you got 28 people and 1 DJ.
All they can give you for under 30 is a £200 fine.
That's enough to cover the dance.
Patrick says that's okay because he's a politician, so he's all right. He can have 100 people in there. Nobody's gonna tell him nothing.
Well, you're all right, Patrick. Your expenses are low. Come KP, master.
Put your address in the box. We're gonna come to yours.
I'll take an IP address.
Yeah. VPNs, people. VPNs. So listen, as we're saying, all great things must come to an end. Angela, what have you got planned for your New Year celebration?
Well, the family is here, so that's all we need, really. Just some good food, good drink, and the family around you.
Bless up. Mr. Crossbody, sir.
Well, I want to tell everyone that I will be following the government guidelines because I'm a cooperative citizen and I'm not a rebel.
I totally agree with him. As for me, I shall be doing what I always do come New Year's. I shall have a little glass of something. And most importantly, I shall be on my knees giving thanks and gratitude for all that I have that's been bestowed upon me. And most importantly, always remembering those whose shoulders we stand upon, who may no longer be here, but who forevermore carry us into the future. So whatever you decide to do at the closing of this year and the coming of the new year, we wish you from all here at What a Week a wonderful, wonderful celebration. Make sure you keep it in your heart. This has been Mr. C.
Tony Crossbody saying, yes, Dennis, you are absolutely correct. Dennis Doyley, that's
Angela. And Angela.
And Angela, the lovely lady Angela.
And we say a big special shout out to our producer, Theo Ambrose, and all of the crew here at What a Week. Thank you very much. Remember to like, subscribe, and to share. Take care, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you, guys.